Hello everybody, it's Zach here from RealEstateLicenseWizard.com. Today I'm exploding with excitement. Today we're doing 11 essential real estate exam topics that you need to know to pass a real estate exam. Now, when we started this list, we were going to do just 10, but because we always like to go above and beyond on this channel, we added an extra one just so you guys are as prepared as possible come exam day. Anyways, without further ado, let's jump into these essential real estate exam concepts. All right, so to start out, you need to know the different types of property. First and foremost, you need to know the difference between real and personal property. Remember, real property is all things attached to the land and the legal rights to it. Real property is usually things that are unmovable, such as the home itself or the buildings within the property line. Personal property is all things removable, like clothes, lawnmowers, couches, TVs, and furniture. Now, secondly, you have to understand the legal rights that come with real property. These rights are called the bundle of rights. The best way to remember this is to think of property rights as a bundle of sticks. When a person purchases property, he or she is given the rights to the property. These rights can be split up and given to different parties. Just like a bundle of sticks, you can separate some of the rights and give them to other parties. Makes sense, right? So third, you need to understand real estate characteristics. Now, there are 4 characteristics you must know. These characteristics are often referred to as the 4 essentials of value. They are demand, utility, scarcity, and transferability. Now, an easy way to remember this is with the acronym DUST. Again, remember, demand, utility, scarcity, and transferability. Now, next is supply and demand. Keep this concept super simple. Do not overthink this. Demand refers to how much of a product or service is wanted by buyers. Supply represents how much the market can offer. It's important to remember that supply and demand functions like a scale. If one side rises, the other will lower, and vice versa. It's as simple as that. Now, fifth, you have to understand the different types of ownerships. Now, ownership can be broken into a few separate ways, but first and foremost, it's broken down by how many owners the property has. There are 2 types depending on the amount of owners: ownership and severalty or co-ownership. Ownership and severalty means one person owns the property, while co-ownership is when title to the property is held by 2 or more individuals. Those parties are called co-owners or concurrent owners. Now, this leads us to the 6th concept that you need to know. You need to understand the different forms of co-ownerships. Now, there's tenancy in common and joint tenancy. Now, tenancy in common is when a parcel of real estate is owned by 2 or more tenants, but upon the death of a tenant in common, that share is transferred to the estate or heir of the deceased tenant. Now, with joint tenancy, when a property owner or when the property is owned by joint tenants, the interest of a deceased owner automatically gets transferred to the remaining surviving owners. You see the difference? Joint tenants have a right to survivorship, while tenants in common do not. Next, you need to understand estates. For our 7th concept, you need to understand the ins and outs of estates. Estates can be divided into 2 different sections: freehold estates and less than freehold estates. A freehold estate is an estate in which you have the exclusive right to enjoy the possession of a property for an undefined length of time. Now, there's 3 types of freehold estates that you need to know: fee simple absolute, fee simple to feasible, and of course a life estate. Now, on the contrary, a less than freehold estate, also known as a leasehold estate, is an estate held by one who rents or leases property. The key difference between a leasehold and a freehold estate is the limitation of time, and that's super important. I'm going to repeat it one more time. The key difference between a leasehold estate and a freehold estate is the limitation of time. Now, there are 4 types or 4 main types of leasehold estates. There's the fixed term tenancy or estate for years. There's a periodic tenancy, an estate at will, or an estate at sufferance. So next, you need to understand deeds and title. Now, title is the legal concept of saying you own a right to some form of asset or interest. If someone has title, that means they have the right to own something like a house or property. Title might sound like a document or piece of paper, but it actually is not. It's just a legal concept, not a piece of paper. Now, as for deeds, things are a little bit different. A deed is the legal document that transfers title from one person to another, or the written proof of of ownership for a form of asset or interest. Now, it's worth mentioning, because I get asked this all the time, car titles and real estate titles are not the same concept. I think this is why the difference is so confusing for people, and people get deeds and title mixed up in real estate all the time. Because yes, when it comes to car titles, that is a physical piece of paper, but that is not the case in real estate. Next, you need to understand appraisal methods. Now, there's the sales comparison approach, the cost approach, and then the income approach. The sales comparison approach bases its value or opinion of value on what similar properties in the vicinity have sold for. It compares them and then derives a numerical value. Now, the cost approach seeks to determine how much a property would cost to replace it after subtracting depreciation. That's important to remember. It's after subtracting depreciation, meaning if you tore down the building specifically, how much would it cost to build or to rebuild it to its former self? Now, the cost approach is considered to be reliable, obviously, when it's used on newer buildings, and not as reliable with older. And then there's the income approach. Now, the income approach is primarily used on rental properties because it's based or determines its value on what a property generates through income or potential of income. Now, while we're on the topic of value, let's cover appreciation and depreciation. So appreciation is any given value or gain in value of a property over time from any cause. Depreciation is any loss in the value over time from any cause. One is gain, one is loss. Now, depreciation is super important to understand. So important that there's actually three main different types of depreciation. The three types or forms of depreciation are functional obsolescence, economic obsolescence, and physical deterioration. Now, functional obsolescence refers to the loss of property due to an obsolete design feature. Now, an example of this would be an old house in a neighborhood with maybe one bathroom, and the neighborhood is filled with new homes featuring at least two bathrooms. Or maybe a neighborhood is filled with 2-car garages, but your garage only fits one. Next would be that economic obsolescence, as I was mentioned, that second form of depreciation. Now, that refers to loss of property value due to external factors, like flight patterns, maybe a busy highways next to the property, or maybe rise in local crime. And then the third and final form of depreciation is physical deterioration. Now, physical deterioration is any loss of property value through normal wear and tear that a building or property experiences as it ages. Finally, you need to understand everyone's favorite thing, fair housing. Now, being a real estate agent means you're representing somebody, you're representing agency, clients, city, town, all that good stuff. And representation is so important that the exam loves to drill you on fair housing. So for fair housing, it's important to know the different laws and what they mean for real estate agents. There's the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and 1964. There's the Fair Housing Act itself, and of course, the antitrust laws. Now, the antitrust laws are a collection of federal and state government laws that regulate the conduct and organization of business corporations, normally to promote fair competition for the benefit of the consumers. Benefit of the consumers is the key takeaway there. Now, in this aspect, you need to understand what classifies as an antitrust law violation. So some of those would include price fixing, dividing territories, conspiracy to boycott. Those are all examples of antitrust law violations. Be familiar with those terms if you are not already. Now listen, knowing these 11 concepts is not a guarantee you'll pass come exam day, but these are definitely the most important concepts that you need to know and to get a good foundation to start. If you do not know these concepts, we can pretty much bet you're not going to pass the exam. In fact, you'll probably do poorly. So if something is unfamiliar to you in this video or list, look into our videos, look into our crash course that covers a lot of these concepts, one of our reviews with an actual student, or check out our premium prep course located on our website. Study up, start here, and build up your knowledge so you can pass the exam come exam day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Thanks so much for watching. This is Zach from RealEstateLicenseWizard.com. As always, make today magical.